Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will talk about how we can become great teachers. This is just the introductory portion of the talk. Before this talk, there was a talk about how China has become great, starting from a primitive condition. So the issue is how we can imitate China. That was the topic of the previous speaker. We can all list hundreds of problems, many of which the previous speaker listed. The question is, what is the solution to these problems? So I would like to say that the solution is simple. It is to provide a good education to our people. Those whom we educate will become the leaders of Pakistan tomorrow. If we do well, they will become great leaders. If we do poorly, then they will become bad leaders and the nation will suffer. So the university teachers have the fate of the nation in their hands. And in that sense, the object, the goal of becoming great teachers is of extreme importance. Now, one major obstacle to becoming great teachers is to focus on the wrong problems. Like we are told that we need to imitate China or Singapore, the advanced countries. We think about how great these countries are. We lament our problems, why we cannot do this, why we cannot do that, and all of the mistakes in the past and the missed opportunities. These are all waste of time. What happened yesterday and what might be tomorrow, these are both irrelevancies. What really matters is what is the right thing to do today. Thinking about tomorrow and thinking about yesterday, we lose the chance to do what we need to do today. The really important thing is what I can do right now, this moment. So then again, what I need to do today depends on where we are. And looking all over the globe as to what's happening in Brazil and in China and in Japan is not the solution to our problems. It's the big mistake to look for solutions all over the globe when the problems and their solutions lie in our home. So the main question is, what is the right step to take right now, this moment? The prophets, to understand this, we should look at what the first step was, which was taken by our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he was not yet a prophet. He was sitting in the cave of Hira and looking for guidance. He did not know where to go, whom to ask. Then the angel Jibreel ﷺ came to him and gave him the very first revelation. And the very first revelation word was read. So we are being told to acquire knowledge. And then the revelation goes on to describe the Lord as the one who created us and who gave us knowledge of that which we did not have. So the important thing to note here is that Allah Ta'ala is introducing himself as a teacher. After the first teacher, who was Allah Ta'ala himself, then our Prophet himself was also sent as a teacher. So he was the second teacher. And what a teacher he was. The Arabs were in their age of ignorance, darkness, and by the effect of his teaching, they became leaders of the world. So it's really of great importance to know what he taught, how he taught, what was the knowledge that was transmitted by him that turned the most backward people into the leaders of the world. Does that knowledge still exist? And does it still have the same effect? We can look at the effect of the knowledge that was given to the Prophet and see the effects that this knowledge had on the tides of history. There is a common misunderstanding that 14 centuries ago everybody was backward. This is completely false. There were major civilizations, China, Rome, Persia, Egypt, had very advanced technologies. The pyramids have a technology that even now people don't understand how these heavy stones were cut at exactly the right angle. Uh, these civilizations, they had philosophy, literature, arts, crafts, engineering of a type that has not been replicated. Many types of industries. In contrast to these advanced civilizations, the Arabs were very ignorant and very backwards. And they were living as in the tents and the deserts with very primitive conditions. So the knowledge of the Quran changed these people and brought them from the bottom of the rank of the civilization to the top. And it created a civilization which lasted and enlightened the world for 1,000 years. And the surprising fact is that nearly all of the knowledge that we see today originates, it has its roots in the Quran. So we all know that Europe was in the Dark Ages, but what we don't know is how did these Dark Ages end? If you read European histories, they tell you that it happens all by itself. There was no cause. But Jack Goody has written a book called The Theft of History, in which he says how Europeans stole the discoveries of other civilizations and claimed them for themselves. The initial light of civilization came from the Crusades, when the Christians had first contact with the advanced civilization of the Muslims. And reconquest of Spain, completed in 1492, gave Europeans access to millions of books in the libraries of the Islamic civilization. And this is really what sparked the Renaissance, the rebirth, the enlightenment of Europe. There is a lot of evidence, even though this is suppressed in the European accounts, there is lots of evidence that Europe got its start from Islam. The European civilization owes everything to Islam, its birth to Islam. There is a book called The Enlightenment Quran, which explains how all of the leading thinkers of the Enlightenment read translations of the Quran and were influenced by it. For a century, the textbooks taught in Europe, even the concept of a university came from the Islamic civilization, and the concept of higher education and the books that were used were all borrowed from the Islamic civilization. A strange thing which happened was that the Catholic Church made tremendous effort to suppress the Islamic knowledge because they were afraid that this would lead to heresy. This would lead people to reject their superstitious religion. And in fact, this is what happened. The Protestants broke away from Catholics as Catholic religion, partly because of the influence of Islamic teachings, which led people to new ways of thinking. So the Catholic Church suppressed Islamic knowledge, and that's why a lot of people like Copernicus, who translated the books of Islamics, claimed them for themselves. They could not afford to acknowledge the Islamic origins because then they would be tortured. Even today, there is a book written on Jefferson's Quran recently, which explains how the ideas which are written, the enlightened ideas written into the US Constitution, were taken from the Quran by Thomas Jefferson. So the issue, which is the goal of this introduction, is to think about, can we become those teachers who can change the history of civilization? Because today we are once again in the same situation. Muslims are once again at the bottom rank. God gave knowledge of what man did not know to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he changed the course of history with that knowledge. This knowledge was passed on to the Muslim Ummah, and Allah Ta'ala tells us in the Quran that you are the best of the communities and you have been raised for the guidance of all mankind. So we are supposed to take this message and give it to all of mankind. So the burning question for us today is, does the Quran have the same power today that it did 14 centuries ago? What was that knowledge that was given to man that man did not know? Do we have that knowledge today? Is that knowledge just as powerful? Can we learn this knowledge? Can we teach it? Will it have the same effects? These are the questions that we will be examining in the rest of this talk.